Imagine having your personal WhatsApp nutrition assistant, just one click away to easily track and monitor your daily nutrition habits, the good and the bad. You can track the food you eat, the calories you consume, calculate the calories you burn through exercise, and so much more. This is your personal nutrition companion, fully customizable to integrate with any nutritional resources you provide. Let's go through a quick demo. Here's a BillShip workflow that uses the WhatsApp bot trigger to listen for messages from WhatsApp. At the crux of this workflow, we have our AI nutritionist, powered by BillShip's OpenAI assistant node. Let's test this workflow. In WhatsApp, we'll ask our bot to log a meal for us along with useful information such as calories, proteins, and more. And after a short moment, our bot replies back to us notifying us that our lunch entry has been logged successfully. We can double check this in our BillShip table. We'll select the NutriBot table. If we expand the log column, we'll find our meal here along with the calories, carbs, description, fat, the type of meal, proteins. That worked great. But now let's walk through how you can build and customize this WhatsApp bot thanks to BillShip. BillShip is a low-code visual backend builder. You can use it to create powerful APIs, schedule tasks, database operations, and as we'll see in this demo, BillShip is also a great choice for creating AI-driven apps. In some of our older videos, we showed you how you could create your own WhatsApp bot using an intermediary service in Twilio. But in this video, we'll show you how you can use the official WhatsApp Business API from Meta to create a more scalable and reliable WhatsApp bot. Let's begin. Our WhatsApp bot will consist of two workflows. First, we'll go through setting up the WhatsApp bot verification template, which will allow us to verify our workflow endpoint and use it as a webhook in the Meta dashboard. Once webhook verification is established, we'll then clone the NutriBot WhatsApp Nutrition Assistant template and go through setting it up from start to finish. And by the end of this video, we'll have our WhatsApp bot live and working. As our first step, we'll clone the WhatsApp bot verification template. We'll be passing the endpoints of our workflows in the Meta dashboard to use as webhooks, so that whenever we send a message from WhatsApp, that notification will be forwarded to our workflow. But before we can do that, we need to verify our webhook endpoint. This workflow is using the WhatsApp token verification node for webhook verification. We're required to enter the verification token. But before we can do that, we need to create a business app in the Meta dashboard. And to do this, you'll need to have a Meta developer account. If you don't already have one, then you can easily create one by using your existing Facebook account. But since we're already signed in, we'll go to My Apps. And from here, you'll want to create a new app. You'll be asked, what do you want your app to do? You can just select Other and click Next. Next, we need to select our app type. We'll select Business to gain access to the WhatsApp API. Then we'll click Next. Here, we'll just need to give our app a name. We'll call it NutriBot. And now we'll create our app. Great. Our app is now created. And next, we need to add a product to our app. And since we'll be building a WhatsApp-driven bot, we'll want to select the WhatsApp product. To begin, we'll click Setup. The first thing we'll need to do here is select a verified business profile. By default, we already have one selected. But if you don't already have a verified business portfolio, then the platform will guide you through the process of getting one. Let's continue. And if you've made it this far, you've successfully added the WhatsApp product to your app. From here, we can simply select Start using the API to begin. On this page, we'll find our temporary access token, which we'll be using later when we're configuring our NutriBot template. Before we start configuring webhooks, there are some useful steps on this page we may want to follow. Let's verify that messaging works. And you can even do this if you don't already have a verified WhatsApp number set up. This is because Meta provides a test number that you can use as a from number to send messages from. We'll select the test number, but one thing you need to keep in mind is that if you want to be able to send messages to any WhatsApp number, you'll need to have a verified WhatsApp number set up. And you can do that by just going to Add Phone Number and just let the platform guide you through the process of getting a verified WhatsApp number. For now, we'll just continue with the test number. Next, we need to enter a phone number we'd like to send the test message to. Since we're using a test from number, you'll need to verify your phone number first before you can start receiving test messages. You can do that by going to a Manage Phone Number list and adding a phone number. Once you enter your phone number, the platform will send you a verification code that you will need to enter to verify the phone number. We've already done that, so we'll select our test number here. And now we're ready to start sending test messages. We'll click Send Message at the bottom to send the test message. We get a message that the message was successfully sent. If we take a look in WhatsApp, we can see that we've indeed received a test message. Hello world. Great. Now we can rest assured that messaging will work as we advance in our demo. For the remainder of this demo, we'll be using the test number to send messages from. This is the easiest way to get started, but when you're ready to switch your app to live mode, make sure you have a verified WhatsApp number already set up. Now let's start configuring our webhook. On this same page, if we just scroll down, we'll see a webhook section. From here, we can click the Configure Webhooks link to begin. As we alluded to in the beginning of the video, once we send a message to our WhatsApp bot, we want that message to be forwarded to our NutriBot workflow. And the way we're going to do this is by passing our workflow endpoint as a webhook to use. But in order to do that, we need to verify our webhook. To begin, we'll click Edit. We'll need to enter two values here. The first one is a callback URL. This will be our workflow endpoint. And the second one is a verified token. Now, this can be any random piece of text that you want. We just need to make sure that the value we enter here, we also pass in Billship as the verified token. For the purposes of this demo, we'll simply enter NutriBot token. Let's copy this value and we'll head back to Billship and we'll paste it as the verified token to use here. Then we'll want to ship and deploy our workflow. After our workflow is deployed, we'll copy the endpoint URL. Then we'll go back to the meta dashboard and paste this as the callback URL to use. Then we'll click verify and save. And if your webhook saved without any errors, then it means that verification worked. We're almost finished setting up our app. The last thing we need to do is specify which events we want our webhook to listen for. To do that, we'll click on Manage, and then here we want to look for the Messages event. We'll scroll down, here's the Messages event, we'll select it, and our webhook is now subscribed to Messages. We'll save our changes by clicking Done. And that's it. That was a lot, but we've completed all the setup required to have WhatsApp messages be forwarded to Billship. And now we're ready to start working on our NutriBot workflow. To begin, we'll bring up the templates library and we'll search for NutriBot. And from here, we'll clone the WhatsApp Nutrition Assistant template. There's a lot going on in this workflow, but don't feel overwhelmed because we'll go through it step by step with no node skipped. At a high level, this node is listening for messages from WhatsApp. It's using the WhatsApp bot trigger to receive these messages. And these messages will ultimately be passed to our OpenAI Assistant node. Our OpenAI Assistant node will form up an answer, and we'll reply that answer back using our autoresponder node from the WhatsApp integration group. But obviously, there's a lot more steps going on in between. So let's start from the very top at our WhatsApp bot trigger. The entry point of any Billship workflow will always be a trigger, and this workflow is using the WhatsApp bot trigger node. When we send a message to our WhatsApp bot, that message will be forwarded to our workflow. Our WhatsApp bot trigger will then verify and parse the message payload from the WhatsApp webhook event. This event includes information such as the message being sent, the from number, timestamp, and chat ID. For one of the configurations of this trigger, we're setting the path to handle webhook, and the HTTP method is set to post. It's an easy detail to miss, but super important. The path being passed here needs to match the path that we used in our WhatsApp bot verification workflow. Recall in the meta dashboard when we configured our webhook, we passed the verification workflow endpoint as the callback URL. For verification, Meta will issue a GET request to this endpoint URL. And for webhook events, Meta will issue a POST request to this endpoint URL. So if we go back to Billship, we need to ensure that our WhatsApp bot trigger path is set to handle webhook and the method is set to post to be able to listen for incoming messages. To finish setting up our WhatsApp bot trigger, we need to pass our app ID and app secret. Back in the meta dashboard, we'll go to app settings and basic. And from here, you'll be able to find your app ID and app secret. First, we'll copy the app ID and paste it in Billship. And then we'll copy our app secret and paste it in Billship. Bear in mind that at no point should you be exposing these two values. Instead, the best thing to do is store them securely in Billship as secrets. For the purposes of this demo, this isn't really important because at the end of this video, we'll be deleting our test NutraBot app to prevent any malicious attack. The next node in our workflow is to get the current date and time relative to the specified time zone. If you're curious, we can actually preview the output of this node. We'll just run the node and we get the current date and current time in UTC. And the reason we're doing this is because we're going to be passing the current time as part of our prompt to the assistant. So if we ask our assistant to log a meal for us, it will implicitly know what type of meal to log based on the current time. So it can be either lunch, dinner, breakfast, depending on the time of day. Next up is a webhook message parser node from the WhatsApp integration group. This is a utility node that extracts useful information from the incoming payload from Meta, such as the text message body, the from number, timestamp. Next, we're using a branch node. And the reason we're using a branch node here is because we want to check if a message is included in the incoming payload that we get from Meta. If we do get a message, then we want to continue with the regular execution of the workflow. If we don't receive a message at all, then we simply want to return out of the workflow. And here we're just using the return node. We're setting the status code to OK. And we're just passing a fixed message status delivery. Once we receive a message, the next node to execute is the autoresponder node. And we're going to be using this node to reply back with a message. You may be wondering why we're doing this so early on. After all, the message we want to reply back with is the assistant response. But the reason we want to also send a message ahead of that is because sometimes the OpenAI assistant may be lacking in performance, be it because of latency issues or just because of the complexity of the task you give it. So we don't want the user to just be waiting a long while before getting any reply back from our bot. Instead, we'd prefer to show something of a generic message in AI is thinking. But before we can do that, we need to pass our access token. Back in the Meta dashboard, we'll go to WhatsApp and API setup. And then here we're provided with a temporary access token that we can use. Keep in mind that this is temporary. And as you can see here, this one will actually be expiring in 23 hours. But for testing purposes, this will work just fine. So we'll copy it. We'll go back to Billship and we'll paste it as the access token to use. We'll reiterate again that you never want to expose your access token. Instead, you should store them securely as a Billship secret. But since we'll be deleting this MO app after this video, there won't be any issues. The second input for this node is for the webhook payload. We can simply retrieve this value from the request body. Finally, we just need to specify the message we want to reply with. And here we're just passing a generic message, AI is thinking. And we're almost at the crux of this workflow, which is the OpenAI assistant node. But just before that, we have a get history node. This node is retrieving an entry from our NutraBot Billship table. And for the ID of the document we want to retrieve, we're using the from number. We're getting this value from our webhook message parser node, and the from number is what we're using. But why are we doing this? Our assistant will store logged meals or exercises in this NutraBot table. But another useful information that will also be stored in this table is the thread ID we get from our OpenAI assistant node. We're going to want to persist our thread ID so that our OpenAI assistant node can maintain conversational history. Still confused? That's okay. For you to better understand, let's take a look at our NutraBot table. We'll open our Billship database, and here's our NutraBot table. Let's bring it up, and you can see our table only consists of two fields, log and thread ID. First, log contains the meals or exercises we ask our assistant to say for us. And secondly, thread ID is just the OpenAI thread ID we save. And another important detail is if we look at the document path, we can see that the ID for this document is our phone number from which we sent a message to our WhatsApp bot. And now we've arrived at the main part of our workflow. This is the OpenAI assistant node. With Billship's OpenAI assistant node, you can use any existing node from the Billship library as a tool for your assistant. For example, in this demo, we're using a custom node as a tool to log an entry in our NutraBot table. But there's so much more that you can do with the OpenAI Assistant. And we already have a bunch of videos covering the OpenAI Assistant node in greater detail. And likewise, we also have a lot of templates to help you quickly get started using the OpenAI Assistant node. Let's configure our Assistant node. The first thing we'll need to do is enter our OpenAI API key. We already have this stored in secrets, so we'll just select it. If you don't already have your OpenAI API key saved in Billship, then you can easily get it if you just go to the OpenAI console and navigate to the API key section. Next, we need to provide an assistant ID. We'll go back to the OpenAI console and we'll create a new assistant. We'll name our assistant NutraBot. We'll select the latest GPT model. And if you want to provide additional nutritional resources to your assistant to use as knowledge base, then you can enable the file search tool and just upload those files here. Now we can just copy our assistant ID and paste it back in Billship. Next, we can steer our assistant by passing a set of instructions for it to follow. Let's look at the instructions we're using here. In summary, we're telling our OpenAI assistant that it's a fitness trainer and nutritionist. Its task is to either respond to user questions with best advice, break down nutritional information, or total calories spent doing a certain activity. When we give it a description about a particular meal, it should be able to break down said meal in terms of calories, fat, carbohydrates, and proteins. The important part here is our instructions where we're telling our assistant that we are giving it some tools to use, and it must use these tools following the guidelines for each tool. And then here we're providing the guidelines for our assistants to follow. So if a user asks it to log an entry, it must use the log entry tool, and then it must log that entry in JSON format. And then we're specifying here the JSON structure that it should follow. So we're saying that it should store the meal type, date, fat, calories, and so on. This is an important detail to keep in mind because for best results, you want to explicitly tell your assistant to use the tools you give it, and even better, provide guidelines for each tool. This is something that you'll need to trial and error with depending on which tool you're giving your assistant to use. But within a few tries, you should be able to get it working just the way you want. Next is the user prompt. This is our message to the assistant. Let's look at the value being used here. So the first thing you'll notice is that we're notifying our assistant about the current time. And we're getting this value from the get date and time node above. And then the next thing we're passing here is our message to the assistant. This is our WhatsApp message, and we're getting this value from our webhook message parser node. And then we're selecting the body of the message. Next up is thread ID. If we want to allow our OpenAI assistant to maintain conversational history, we need to pass a thread ID. Recall that we're saving the thread ID as part of our NutraBot table. Let's look at the value being used here. So here we have a little bit of JavaScript conditioning taking place. The first expression here exists is coming from our get history node. This node outputs an exist field, which will return true if the document exists. If the document exists, then that means that we can access the thread ID from its output data. And lastly, you'll notice that the file search tool is already selected if in case you uploaded any additional documents to your assistant to use as knowledge base. Moving on, our assistant has the ability to use one tool. That is the log item tool. The assistant can decide to use this tool to log an exercise or meal inside of our NutraBot table. First, the table name to store all this information in is NutraBot, and the second parameter is for us to specify a unique ID for the entry to be created. As mentioned earlier, for the document ID, we're using the from address. Recall we're extracting this value from the webhook message parser node. And then the field that we want to update is the log field. So if we go back to our NutraBot table and we expand the log field, we can see that this is actually an array. This means that we can push multiple log entries to this field. Currently, we only have one meal being logged, but as we'll see later on in the demo, this list will expand. The last field is where we can specify the data we want to log inside of our table. But this is actually a special field. Notice how it says autofilled. Autofilled by who? Well, by the assistant. By marking this field as autofilled, the assistant will be able to intelligently fill in the value for us depending on the nature of our prompt. All we need to do is to provide a good description of the field. So for the input name, we're saying the log entry in JSON format, and more importantly, for the description of the input type and the data we can put in this field, we're telling the assistant that it needs to pass the data in JSON format with the following fields. This is a really powerful feature of the BuildShip OpenAI Assistant node because we don't want to hard code a specific value here. Instead, we want the assistant to be able to deterministically populate this value for us depending on the message we send to our WhatsApp bot. We're nearing the end of our workflow. Once we get back a response from the assistant, then we want to reply it back to the user as a WhatsApp message. And just as before, we'll use the autoresponder node to do this. We'll need to add our access token here again, so we'll just scroll back to the top and copy it and paste it. We're already passing the webhook payload from the request body, and as the message we want to reply back, we're using the response from the OpenAI Assistant node. After that, the final steps in our workflow is to ensure that we're saving the thread ID if it's not already saved. We have a branch node that is checking if a NutriBot entry exists for the sender number. So the condition value being used here is the output we get from getHistory and exist output value, which will return true if the document exists. If it does, then we don't want to do anything else and we're just going to return an OK status along with our assistant response. But if the document doesn't exist, then we'll want to create it. Our create ID node is doing just this. Just as before, the table name is set to NutriBot. The unique document ID will be the from number that we extract from our webhook message parser node. And then importantly, what we're saving here can be seen in the data. We're initializing our log, but the important bit here is the thread ID we're saving. And that's the final step in our workflow. That was a lot of information, and all our hard work was not for nothing, because we're now ready to start testing our WhatsApp bot. But first, we'll need to ship our workflow. And with our workflow now deployed, let's get to the fun part. Here we are in WhatsApp. And this is the test number of our WhatsApp bot. Recall that throughout this demo, we've been using the test number that Meta gave us. And it's this test number that we'll be sending our messages to. If you're using a verified number, then you can use that instead. Start our conversation with our bot. Awesome! After a few seconds, our bot came back with a reply. But the first message we see here is the generic AI is thinking message. But then after that, we get our assistant message. And our bot is telling us that it can help us with a variety of fitness and nutrition-related topics, including meal and nutrition analysis, calorie logging, exercise analysis, and so on. Okay, so far so good. Next, let's test the tool we gave our assistant. Here's our new message to the bot. I just ate a tomahawk steak with mashed potatoes and a side of chicken salad. I also drank a Red Bull. Please log this for me. We'll send a message. And after a few moments, we get a reply from our bot. It has notified us that it has successfully logged our dinner entry for us. So if we see the meal type here, it's set to dinner. Recall that we're passing the current date and time to our assistant, so it has knowledge of the type of meal to save. It's setting the description, the estimated calories, fat, carbs, and protein. And we can further double check this in our BuildShip table. Here's our NutriBot entry. Let's expand the log field. And here's our old entry. And at the bottom, we'll find our new entry. This is the tomahawk steak with mashed potatoes we just asked our bot to save for us. Perfect. And that's how you can use BuildShip along with the Meta Business Platform API to create an AI-powered WhatsApp bot. Before we end, we just want to highlight some important details that you should keep in mind. The first one is that for the purposes of this demo, we've just been using the test number that Meta gave us. This comes with a limitation that we can only send messages to phone numbers that we manually verify. So if you want to be able to send messages to any WhatsApp number, then you'll need to get yourself a real business phone number. Secondly, throughout this demo, we've been using a temporary access token that will expire in 24 hours. If you'd like to find out how you can set up a permanent token, which you'll most certainly want to do when you take your app live, then you can follow our documentation, which goes through the various steps to getting a permanent token. This was a long one, but if you've made it all the way to the end, then you should now have a good idea of how you can use BuildShip to create your own customized WhatsApp bots. And we'd love to hear what you build, so please feel free to share your ideas or any feedback you may have in the comments. And one more thing, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of the awesome content we're releasing by the week. And we'll see you in the next video. Until then, happy bill shipping!